Now welcome to episode 19 of Dusty. Now last episode the tub got prepped and painted and that looks absolutely amazing for a shed job. But this episode I want to try and get it on the chassis. I've got all new body mounts and stuff like that, but I want to get it on the chassis and driving. So just basic things like seats and steering. So thanks to Ben Keen, I've got all brand new genuine body mounts for the 40. Got the bolt kit and everything, but the only thing they don't come with is little sleeves that go between the mounts. I got 3 out of the 4 from the old body mounts out, which was lucky. The 4th one was just so badly rusted in, but all these have got a bit of rust on them, lots of rubber, so I've got them in the vise here, just a bit of a chisel, and I'm just kind of scraping it all off, getting it clean again. So I'm now going to try and put this fuel tank in, because I remember when I was taking it out, it got caught on everything and it was just a right pain to get out. So I'm going to sit it under there now and see if it's any easier while the body's off. So I've put the straps for the fuel tank underneath. They all bolt to these brackets that I put on the back. The breather tubes and everything I bolted on. Didn't repaint that because there's a cover that goes over there. So I got the fuel tank in now. I'm going to bring the chassis in and then we'll lift the whole body onto it because that's the hardest bit to do while it's on the chassis. So I've set the body mounts up here. The bigger one of the lot goes on the top and that's the same for the back. So that's underneath like that, and then we'll lift the cab on, sit it on there and we can put the bolts through. So I've got the body on finally, and it looks so much better than I expected. The big 33s really set it off. So I've got new bolts as well as body mounts. They just slip through there, and then we'll put a nut underneath. So the bolts are all done up on the body mounts now. So that's pretty much all we have to do for this. Now it's just put some interior things in and get it driving. So I've got everything labelled in bags. That's for the gear shifter. It's all labelled, so fuel breathers, fuel filler neck. So I'm just going to put some of these things in. I'll probably finish doing with the fuel system first and then we'll get on to putting the brake box, the pedal box and the accelerator and everything on. So now I'm going to chuck the brake booster in. I'll just slide it through there, careful not to scratch the paint. So now that the brake master's in, I'm going to put the clutch master. So I'm just going to put a bit of gasket goo around this because there's no actual rubber or anything around it. So just do a bit of this to stop any water, give it a bit of a softer thing on the body. Just a little bit of that, and then we'll stick it in. So all 3 pedals are in now. The accelerator, I've got the spring underneath. The cable runs out there onto the throttle. Brakes all on. I just need the switch in there. And the clutch is all on, so the bolt goes through the top there with the springs, pop into those holes. So now I'll get onto the gear shifter. So now for the gear stick, sits in nice and simple. Put the spring over it, put the rest of the stuff, and then just push it down. So I just had to push down and turn, and here's all the gears. Now I've bled the clutch already. So that's about the same as it was. Need to bleed the brakes later on, but accelerator's all hooked up. This should be alright to drive out of the shed once we hook some fuel up. Now I've got to put the steering wheel in. This rubber gasket goes onto there, and then I've got a plate that goes under there and holds all this up, and then I've got to line it all up with the steering box. So that's the steering all put in now. There was a lot of fiddling around trying to get everything lined up in the front there, but we got it in. It's definitely not straight when the wheels are. Well, it's not too far off, but got to play around with it. The clutch doesn't seem to want to engage. Well, the clutch pushes the actual slave in down there, but it doesn't want to disengage the clutch, so I don't know what's going on there. So we're in the shed today. I'm going to try and get Dusty running, but I've got an issue first where the clutch won't disengage and I can't get it in gear. I'm pretty sure it's the clutch disc, so I've got to get the brakes sorted out before that. so they are pretty much just ready to get bled. I have to put a few hard lines on, but other than that they're ready. I've got to sort the fuel breathers out, but other than that there's not too much else to do. And I put the brake hard lines on. They were a bit of fiddling around trying to get it in there and squeeze past stuff, but they're in nicely now. So it's pretty simple putting these breather lines on. They come down into there, just sticking out there. Some of these lines, I've got photos of it, so it's pretty simple. I'm just going to put that one on there, which goes to the furthest, well, the closest one to the filler neck on the tank. So this is the actual breather where they all kind of breathe out of. That goes up into the chassis or into the body, into that little hole up the top. That grommet sits in there with a soft line going from there to this far one. So that's what all the breathers look like. That's the one for the filler neck that goes to the big one on the tank. I am missing that one there, but this one, as you can see, goes up into the body. The rest of them are alright. So now I've got the vacuum hardline in. That goes across the top of the firewall, down into a soft line into the back of the alternator. But some of these vacuum lines that actually go from the end of the hardline down to the tank, they're all kind of like perished on the end. They're not looking too good. So I've got some new line, and then I've got the new line for the breathers, new kind of brake line there. So we'll hook all these up and then we'll start bleeding the brakes and getting it done. So I'm going to feed the new hose to the chassis, or between the body and the chassis there, and then I'll just stick it onto the hard line and we'll cut it where we need it to get onto the tank. And I've also put new fuel lines where all new fuel lines needed to be. Now it took me a while to work out where that hard line went down there, but that soft line comes from there. Then we've got the hard line and then another soft line coming up from the back of the chassis rail, and then just a soft line out the top of the water canister that goes up there into the hard line from the fuel tank. So we've just started bleeding the brakes, and I'm not going to show you doing it, but you start from that corner, push the pedal, you open the bleeder, push the pedal down, then close the bleeder, then lift the pedal back up. So you need two people, and you do that till there's no air bubbles out of that one. Then you go to this one, then you go to that corner, then you go to the closest one to the booster. So I've kind of missed the first drive of it, but it's driving now. The brakes aren't too flash, but they stop you. The clutch is unstuck. It took a bit to get that unstuck. It was skidding the whole way out of the shed, but that is that's all unstuck now. Drives quite nice. The 33s are definitely a lot comfier than the old split rims. Now of course it's a bit rough, but it definitely looks good. There's a few things that need to be worked on, but this is how it's going to stay for the moment until we really need it driving and all the panels are done. So that's all I've got for this episode. Dusty's running, driving, painted, everything I've wanted to do to it. So I'm really happy with it. The new 33s, they're quite nice. But next episodes are probably just going to be a bit of rust repair and playing around with a few things. So that's all I've got for this episode.